Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Boxing Weights and Rugby YouTube channel. And today we're going to be talking boxing with my friend Enda and Luke. How are we doing, gentlemen?
All good.
All good.
Right, so what we're going to do is we're going to take a very quick run through and review so far what's happened in July, because all the good stuff comes up next week. I actually can't think of a better week in boxing than next week. I can't remember one. But we're going to start with, back at the start of the month, we're going to start us with Jaron Boots Ennis. And I know that all of us thoroughly enjoy Boots. What did you think of his performance, guys?
Excellent.
Yeah, it was just sensational, and it reminded me, why I loved him so much. Like, oh my good lord, like his movement and that pivot on the uppercut. I was like, oh, it was just it was a joy to behold. The guy's really going to be the new king when two certain gentlemen exit the scene. I definitely think, this man is up there to be crowned the king. And anyone, especially from the UK, that thinks they're even going to remotely stand in his way, better watch out.
What did you think, Luke?
Yeah, look, I've been high on Boots for a few years now, and he's just showing time and time again the talent that he is, and his work ethic as well is fantastic. He's always in the gym, seems to live in the gym, and it shows in his fights. He doesn't tire. He's happy with whatever pace the fight's fought at. He can slow it down. He can speed up whenever. Fight from both stances equally as well. He's just a joy to watch, like Enda said.
Yeah, he's one of those few guys that you kind of look at and go as a contender, as like, right, he's the one that's going to kind of like step through, and it's not just a right, Willie will win a world title, which I think weirdly he's already won his world title, his first one, because I think after July the 29th happens, because this was for the interim belt, he'll be forced to vacate. I think that was the fight that won him the world title, so I think he's already won it. But it's his jab. The jab's absolutely brilliant. I was trying to explain to Christy, and we were saying, it's like, right, how good is Ennis? And I was like, right, if you think Devin Haney as just the pure boxer is absolutely brilliant, well, imagine Devin Haney punches like Inoue, and that is roughly what you're getting with Boots.
That's actually brilliant. That is great analogy.
Because he's just
punch.
Yeah, because he's an absolute rocket. I thought he was brilliant. I thought he realized he wasn't going to be able to beat the guy up, so he wasn't going to just take him out with one shot. So he just slowly broke him down, and it's an absolute shame that we're not going to see Ortiz fight Ennis, because I think that would have been one hell of a fight.
We might have a higher weight class one day.
Maybe at 154.
No, I would say, given Ortiz's issues, it seems to be more than just weight. I don't know, though.
Well, I think the thing is what they're worried about with Rhabdo is Rhabdo can become chronic. And if it becomes chronic, the second it'll have just intermittent flare-ups. And the second he tries to take any weight off, we don't know if 154 will be enough. Then does he have to go to 160? And
he's undersized then?
Yeah, he's then undersized. And does this take a yard or two off him already? He's been through 3 really serious health things. But I think for Virgil, it would just be a case of we hope he's healthy for the rest of his life, and rather than worrying about his career. Because that's the battle of that jab would have been incredible. Ortiz punches with a right hand with his jab, and Ennis is the one I loved about Ennis was basically he would touch high and then stab low. He would touch high and then stab low, and then you thought he was about to touch high, so that you kind of half parried it, and then whack, it came straight through. It was just the variation of the jab was brilliant, but. Big fan of Ennis, really, really impressive. We're going to go then up to the heavyweights, and somebody who was slightly less impressive was Anderson. What did we think?
I said before the fight that I think Charles Martin's better than a lot of people give him credit for. And I think he definitely showed out the other week against Anderson. I thought Anderson did well dealing with adversity, which is something that he hasn't had to deal with yet. And that was nice to see him have to do a bit of thinking in there, and I suppose dig deep at times too, because Martin landed a few good shots, and if anything, Martin can punch. We know that much about him. So Anderson had to deal with what was in front of him, and he came through. So a win's a win, really, and he didn't exactly lose many rounds. It was still a good performance, all said and done. It just wasn't the performance we were all expecting from him. But that'll come with time and learning. Like, he's only 23, so. I
What do you
still
think,
think
Enda?
he's very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it reminds me of the fight that Jason Quigley was involved with earlier on. Jason,
Berlanga.
opponent, got all the credit, even though he didn't win, like this here. And I think both of those were a litmus test for the favorite boxer to come through. And okay, he won, but he didn't really pass the test that they'd set for him. So, they're expecting big things of Jared Anderson. So while he won, and while you'll say Charles Martin, did what he did, but to burst through to the level they wanted him at, he didn't quite do that. So now he's to go back a step, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just things aren't going to happen as fast as maybe some people thought,
I think with the current landscape, that's an advantage, though.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. When all this mess clears up, he'll be there to pick up the pieces, against an aged, a slightly more.
And the thing is too, we judge Martin on his losses, right? But when you look at Martin's losses, really, he was a novice when he fought Joshua. He might have had the belt, but he was still a novice when he fought AJ, and he got chinned. Fair enough, right? And then he lost to Ortiz in a war where he could have easily have won that fight as much as Ortiz won it.
But who's he beaten?
Sorry?
Who's he beaten? That's the problem with Martin. He's not beaten.
That's exactly what I was just about to say next. People are judging him off his losses, whereas really you should look at who he's actually beaten.
Yeah.
And that's not really anyone of note. But at the same time, he's not the only times he's had those opportunities was against Ortiz and Joshua. And with Joshua, you could argue it came too soon. And then with Ortiz is Ortiz. He's still a top 7 or 8 heavyweight in the world, really. You would have hoped Anderson would deal with Ortiz next if they were to fight, But I think this fight that he's having now next month is another good stepping stone for him, and it's just
it's good to see.
And I think with Martin now, his pedigree's gone up too. He'll get fights off the back of this fight.
Oh yeah, he's a good gatekeeper. I know some people don't like the word; they think it's pejorative, but I don't. I think it just proves that
there's nothing wrong with being a gatekeeper in professional boxing.
It's only pejorative if you think that everybody should be winning a world title, and if you don't win a world title, you're nothing. That's the only real thing.
If you think of it, a gatekeeper is better than British level. It's better than European level.
It depends what gate they're keeping. He's a world level gatekeeper. Obviously they're British level gatekeepers,
and that's a hell of an accomplishment.
Oh, obviously. I mean, Christ. It's like everything in life. I mean, it's not just about the winner, and
that's like you say though, and you're not saying that about him in a derogatory way.
No, that's why I kind of want to continue with my point, but we seem to just roundabout. But I think he's proved his worth there. That really, if people have this up and coming heavyweight star that they want to test, Charles Martin is that litmus test that they must pass. It's not a gimme fight. It's not an easy fight. But if you want to compete at world level right now, obviously in a few years it won't be. Charles Martin is that test. You need to see, is your fighter ready? Because you will find out very quickly, like Anderson did. No, not quite ready. Let's just take him back a step and see where he goes. But yeah, no, 100%. It's like Jay Quigley. Not all the credit. Obviously, Anderson won, but huge kudos went to Charles Martin after that fight.
I find with Anderson, it's interesting to see that they have pumped the brakes slightly. So we were saying this earlier, they haven't rescheduled the Kazakh guy. They've got him in with Rudenko next. But I think there's a couple of things that I would say ticked boxes that I was really happy to see, and there was 2 things that I was kind of worried about. It's basically it depends where he then goes next, and what I'm really intrigued to see is that. Now, first thing is he's now fighting at the end of next month, which is great to see.
Yeah.
The things that I really liked is so full disclosure, I did not like the Martin fight at all. Charles Martin, to me, every single time it appears to have got tough, has decided enough's enough, and he hasn't. As soon as it got difficult against Ortiz, the job was the kind of done. As soon as it got difficult with Joshua, he never really got going, and he's never really fought back. And he fought back against Anderson. I thought when Anderson landed the right hook, even though he'd had some success, I thought the fight was done. But one, Charles Martin's a big lump, and it really shows that Anderson, even at 6'4" and 240, physically he is going to be at a disadvantage when he gets to the top level. He's not a million miles away from Inoue in terms of size. Whereas, Fury is allegedly 6'9" and Joshua is 6'6", but they're all around upper side of.
I'm surprised he hasn't declared himself 7 feet tall yet.
Well, he might well have some stage, but you're then looking at the smaller size of the two, and then it was a case of he boxes so fluidly, and when he was hurt the first time, he dealt with it brilliantly. It was the second one that worried me. So the long right hand at the end where the legs go, that does worry me. It's when people get hit, it depends how they react. And I would actually rather you got a hit flush on the chin, you get down and you get back up in the legs. I find it's when the legs go that it always worries me, because that was always, say, Khan's problem. That he, whenever he was hit, his legs went. He struggled to manage it. Whereas if your legs are fine and you've just taken it on the chin, that was a different thing. But Anderson, it was a case of I still think he's one of the top 2 heavyweight prospects, and it's just the case of you're going to take slightly longer to develop, which hopefully makes him time it better for when he does get to the top. Now, always good to hear from Stephen, and we all send our best wishes to Stephen. We hope that he's doing well.
Yes,
but we will get to the previews in a minute.
That's kind of like hurry up.
Yeah, exactly. Andy Cruz, what did we think of Andy Cruz at the weekend?
I didn't see it.
You haven't seen it. What did you think, Luke?
I thought it was a typical Andy Cruz performance, if we're honest. I know it's his first pro fight, but it was the pot shotting, moving, fancy footwork, flicking the jab. He did bite down on his gum shield at times and try and hurt his opponent. I think he could have done that a bit more. But he got easy 10-round win, won every round. There was a few things I didn't like from him. Was like there was times where he paused and he waited, and you can't do that. Like he's talking about Keyshawn Davis, he's talking about the champions at lightweight. You can't do that with them. You can't play with your food, and I do think if he was finding it relatively easy for 3 or 4 rounds, he could start to do that again, even in against the best guys. Like imagine if he did that against Gervonta Davis. That's the one, isn't it? It's the one where you go, what does he do against someone who pressurizes him and can punch? But again, it's a really hard thing to do.
About standout amateur turning professional, it's how quickly do you move them,
And his feet,
not that quick.
His feet were good at times, but then there was times where he was crossing his feet moving forward, and when he was trying to move across somebody, he's crossing his feet as well. Like he might bring his left foot forward first when he's moving to his right, we'll say. And that might be stuff that he got away with in the amateur system where he's in and out. But in the pros, when he's not going to have that room, sometimes the rings are smaller than others, those are things I just hope he irons out. And I'm sure Bozy Ennis will iron out with him, because he's got that pro style perfected, as we can see with Boots. So I'm sure he's in good hands there.
It totally depends, I think, on which side you're wanting to look at it from. If you want to look at it from a negative point of view, i.e., you could basically, Twitter was split right in half. And it was a case of if you were on a different side of the fence, it was a case of it was 10 rounds of the same stuff. And they never really hurt the guy he was fighting at any stage. And like you said, there's a couple little nitpicks. And you go, right, well, this guy is the best amateur since Lomachenko. We expect great things. And you go, yeah, I can understand that point of view. But equally, I thought the big thing I look for with amateurs is can they control that distance a lot of the time, because they tend to smother because they're so used to being in and out, in and out. And I thought the Cruz controlled the distance brilliantly. Thought his shot selection was great. The jab's wonderful. The stabbing right hand to the stomach is really good. And I thought overall it was a really good, if you remember, this was his professional debut over 10 rounds against a guy, not a world level fighter, but like a top, kind of gatekeeper, fringe world level sort of dude. And I think that's really, really impressive. Now, how his chin holds up when he gets smacked back, how his power holds up as he goes through the levels, you just have to wait and see. But like Enda says, it's how do you get, these guys need he should have 4 or 5 more fights around that level with the gradual increasing difficulty.
Like what they're doing with Galal.
Exactly, yeah. And then Galal was looking. I wasn't impressed with Galal's first few fights, and then there was the last fight. I was like, right, there it is. That's what you got to do. And they've got to find that style, because you can't do exactly what he did as an amateur over that level.
That's it. And like, I'm not trying to shit on him and say, oh, it wasn't a good performance. But I'm thinking of who he's mentioning.
Yep.
And then it's like, no, you don't do that against them. You know.
Exactly. Last one, Baumgardner. Has anyone seen it?
Yes, I stay up for Alicia.
Of course
you know
do,
that.
Yeah.
I love Baumgardner. I think she's fantastic. Her style is my favorite out of all the women's boxers. She's so smooth with it, and her footwork, her jab, everything works in unison.
The base is perfect. She's got the best base out of anyone.
Yeah, better than Clarissa, better than all.
Yeah, she never falls off balance when she's punching. It's great.
Never, and that's why she's always able to hit hard with every shot. And I think you see the build of her. She's an absolute unit. Like, she's a pure athlete.
She's stacked.
Everything from her legs, her back, her shoulders, everything. And like Eddie Hearn said it, and I know it's kind of like being a promoter, but if that was anyone other than Lina Dartu, they were going. Like, some of the shots, unless maybe like if I can, her name's escaping me now.
Pursoon.
Delphine Pursoon, yeah. Like, unless someone like her, like, they're going. Like, they're talking about Amanda Serrano next. If Serrano comes up to 130 and takes those shots,
that's what I want. That's the fight I want.
Yeah.
Serrano versus Baumgardner is the fight.
And then,
to make.
Then they fight. The winner of that fights the winner of Taylor Cameron. Then, and then we're all happy. But yeah, look, Baumgardner, I think she's the second best boxer on the planet, pound for pound, in the women's division.
I agree.
Fair.
Yeah,
we're splitting hairs then.
Yeah. I think we've all got Clarissa at 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, Clarissa's now fairly clearly out on her own, and then I'd have Chantel at 2.
Yeah, I mean, I understand the Chantel argument, but I'd love to see her do it at more than one weight, especially because her best win is against someone who's naturally smaller than her.
Yeah, but then she'd be
and she's coming to the end of her career.
Yeah, well, that too.
Like,
but,
I actually think the McCaskill win is the better.
The McCaskill win is the better win, 100%.
Because it's the better, Taylor's the better name, but if you look at where, Taylor 3 years ago is different, but McCaskill, she doesn't get the credit for the McCaskill win because, one, it wasn't for McCaskill's titles because no one seems to want to give her a shot at that. But McCaskill was awful, really bad for 7 rounds.
Yeah, she wasn't in that fight at all.
But
that's the thing with Alicia as well. That's actually bringing me on to another point about her. She starts fast. And she gets her range so quickly, and then once she has it, she keeps it.
Yeah.
Like, even against Meyer, I know, like, that was, a lot of us had it different, I think, but me and yourself.
Yeah, that was one that split the group. Like, you and I scored it to Baumgardner. I had it literally 6-4, and I think you said to Mayer.
There's only like 1 round difference between us, and then who had it from Mayer? Was it Michael? Yeah,
Michael had it from Mayer. I don't know if Enda, who you scored that for.
I'm trying to remember.
But no, I think Baumgardner, her pace, everything about her is just class. I think
she does hold her feet.
Yeah,
in punching range, she does hold her feet.
But actually, her lateral movement is excellent, and I think her defense on the inside is very good as well. That's that Philly style. So
I could nearly tell you for certain that I had Mayer, because if I had Baumgardner, I'd remember.
Okay,
that's fair.
Who won the fight?
Baumgardner.
Yeah, then I must have had Mayer, otherwise I would not.
But yeah, look, I think she's a joy to watch, and if you're a young girl or
I think Stephen also had Mayer.
Yeah, good one, Stephen.
It's a great rematch as well, but I want Serrano first.
Yes, hopefully the Serrano fight next. But yeah, Alicia, I just love watching.
Is Serrano not a bit small?
Yeah, but I think Serrano's undisputed at the weight class. Yeah. She fought Taylor at 135. She's undisputed at feather, which is the weight class below Alicia. So she'll be stepping up 1.
Yeah,
but
Serrano's I love her to bits, but sometimes I feel like she's sacrificed. She seems to be thrown to the wolves a lot.
I think she's too small for Alicia, but that's just me.
Like, because Baumgardner, like you said in your opening remarks, a unit. you know.
I'd love that fight because it'd be such a good style fight because
But
Serrano
Serrano's
throws
light.
punches
I don't
beautifully
think
as
I'd
well.
like it.
But it would be Anyway, that's not what we're here for.
No.
I was also really impressed with Baumgartner. But shall we? I mean, we're all here to talk about.
Are we going to
the
talk
two
about
fights
this
next week.
weekend first?
We're talking about Tuesday, and then we're talking about Saturday.
There's Saturday too, though. This Saturday.
Yeah.
We're not discussing that.
Maxi
No.
Hughes and
And Kambosos. It's a
I
good
think
fight.
Maxi's going to win. Let me just put
Yeah,
that
the
out there.
upsets there. Well, we'll briefly touch on that. For the IBO lightweight,
I think so.
Yes, IBO.
Yeah.
I always think them
honestly
as the accountancy firm in my head.
I think Maxi Hughes is an absolute legend for what he's done. Like, he's come from nothing.
Yeah, the run is brilliant, but his the power is what worries me.
Mm.
He
But
basically he's either gonna stand Kambosos on his nose like Haney did, or it's gonna be a bit more difficult at that level.
He'll get outworked.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is the way we discuss our top rank sink or swims.
Yeah, this is exactly what this is.
Mm.
Yeah, top rank of going. You've got to beat this guy if you've got any hope of staying with us.
But
yeah, I think it's going to be a good fight.
From reading online, and obviously, given the majority of the people I follow in boxing and media, majority I read, there's a British bent on it, and they're all saying they can see Maxi, getting the upset. And I was like, is that your head or your heart talking?
No, I genuinely think Maxi Hughes is a skillful southpaw who knows how to land his left hand and knows how to stay out of trouble.
And don't forget, with Kambosos, his best... I'm going to say this, I picked Kambosos, by the way. His best win outside of that is an old Lee Selby.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a good fight, and I think
outside of Lopez,
if we're fair to both men, it's two top 10 lightweights.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I don't think it's a mismatch by any stretch. I like the fight.
Neither do I. I think it's a genuinely good fight, and I am looking forward to watching it. That's why I said I just.
So are you telling me now, if I gave you €10 to put on, you would fancy Maxi Hughes with the odds?
Yes. Now in America, who knows? But I genuinely think Maxi Hughes has the tools to get the job done. I don't rate Kambosos that highly. He had one great night, but Maxi Hughes is well able to make him look silly over 12 rounds.
Mm.
He's also on the other person's show. That is worth bearing in mind.
Yes, and
yes.
I think
Americans don't like fiddling it.
And with the first big one of the week, I think I'm probably going to disagree with you boys on this one.
Well, I can see Kambosos winning on points, so that's
my pick. Kambosos on points is what I'm going with.
Likely.
Now, whether he should win on points is not what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying the judges will give it to Kambosos.
I totally can see that happening.
That's one of those ones I'm picking someone based on outside politics.
There's also the likelihood he could very well win on points genuinely, but he has the buffer of being the home boxer, as it were.
But certainly best of luck to Maxi Hughes. Now, let's go into it. So we're going to start with Inoue versus Fulton, or technically it should be Fulton versus Inoue, if I get that right.
Yes, because it's for Fulton's belt.
Because it's for Fulton's title. Right, so I'll set the scene. So in Stephen Fulton, we have the #1 super bantamweight fighter in the world. He is the unified WBO and WBC champion. And he is taking on Inoue, who is a 3-weight world champion, who is 24-0 with 21 knockouts to Fulton's 21-0 with 8 knockouts. Here's the one that absolutely blows my mind with Inoue. Inoue is 19-0 in world title fights with 17 knockouts. That is that is a ridiculous stat. He's going for a world title in his fourth weight class. So Inoue's won it at light flyweight. He skipped flyweight, won it at super flyweight, and he was the WBSS and undisputed bantamweight champion of the world. Gentlemen, one of the top 5 fights that can be made in the sport. What do we think?
Easy. This was the fight I begged for when we did our top 5 of each weight class last year. Look, Inoue is no worse than 3rd best fighter in the world pound for pound.
Yep.
No worse than that. If you have him number 1, number 2, number 3, he can't be any lower than number 3. He's amazing.
If you put him at number 3, I'm not very happy.
Well, it's either him or Usyk, and so.
Yeah, I have that top 2.
He's way above Usyk.
I don't know. Usyk's beating.
No, I just think people get very fanciful about the heavyweights, but then you remember this is pound for pound.
Yeah, and Usyk's beating lads 30 pounds heavier. That's probably the general consensus, Stephen. Yeah, I would say. I'm going to go first because I think you two are going to disagree with me big time.
Yep.
Considering you put him down at number 3, I'm already fuming.
I understand that Fulton is the underdog, and I understand that his most likely outcome is he gets stopped to the body mid to late rounds. But I honestly think he is a fantastic boxer. He's got all the tools needed to beat Inoue, apart from the main thing people think Inoue is going to lose to is size. He's going to outsize himself.
Yep.
Which is probably the most likely outcome. But I think with Fulton, he is a big guy. Like, we've seen them together. Like, Fulton's a big man. He probably has to cut a good bit to get down to super bantam. And he was due a move up to featherweight, but then this fight came along.
Yeah, that was the plan, because they were wanting to do the Akhmadaliev fight before Akhmadaliev lost.
Yeah, that's right. So, like, Fulton's not a small fella. And he has got the style which will suit... Inoue's style will suit him, sorry. He's got the style where he takes away your weapons, and then he figures out how to get to you. So with Inoue, he is just an absolute killer. You know, every shot he lands is going to hurt you. He's got an amazing jab, amazing footwork, amazing body shots. But Fulton is able to use you and manipulate yourself against yourself. So if Inoue's stepping in, Fulton will stop him in his tracks, tie him up, move him, pot shot him, frustrate him for a few rounds. And I think Fulton is smart enough and good enough to do that to Inoue for 4, 5, 6 rounds and then try and get his own pace into things. And I think he will be able to pot shot Inoue and land. And look, I know it's a long shot with the bookies and probably with a lot of people, but I think Fulton will get the job done and probably get a decision.
Stick on the double with Maxi Hughes?
Oh, that'd be nice, wouldn't it?
What are the odds are you getting on that?
I don't know. I might check it after.
If you go into the bookies and put a tenner on it, you lose it.
Like, at the time, I had put Fulton was my number 1 in those categories.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, I just think his style as well is a really good foil to Inoue's style, and that's why I do give him a really good shot. And I think it's going to be a fantastic fight regardless.
So it's really interesting you bring up the style, because the thing I've got written about Fulton, he's very good at multiple styles. So when he beat Brandon Figueroa to unify the titles, he beat Figueroa at his own fight. It was in tight, and he tucked up because he was more athletic. His punches were tighter, and he beat Figueroa at his own game. But then when he fought Danny Roman, he boxed brilliantly, and he outboxed him. So the fact he's beaten 2 world-class super bantamweights at their own fight suggests that that's why I rate Fulton so highly, is the fact that he did it in 2 different ways.
And that's what I mean with Inoue. If he can step into Inoue or he can step off Inoue, he can do both. Now, stepping into Inoue, I wouldn't recommend it if you like your ribs.
Stepping off Inoue is the way to do it.
Exactly. That's what I think. And I think that's what he will do. I think he'll pot shot. I think he'll move. I think he'll try and frustrate him early. And he has a good long jab. He's got long arms for his height as well, Fulton. Now, he didn't, like in the Figueroa fight, he didn't exactly make use of them. But he can, and he's got great feet as well. I just think he's going to do it.
And do you want to counter?
With pleasure. No, I mean, like, I don't disagree. Well, obviously the outcome I disagree with, but I don't disagree. I mean, Stephen Fulton Jr. is an amazing boxer, and that's why I know, like, I'm looking forward to Tuesday more than I'm looking forward to next Saturday. Sorry if that's blasphemy. I'm really sorry.
I won't take it personally.
Well, I kind of meant to Crawford and Spence, not really you, but anyway. I just think this fight is going to be so amazing. Every time I watch Inoue, I just fall more in love with him, because everything he does as a boxer, I just love. He's so skillful, he's so technical, and he's got that power that unbelievable power, and if Fulton wants to kind of, how do I do this? He needs to look at Inoue Donaire won, and okay, Donaire didn't win, but he managed to see the end of the fight, and Fulton could use that as a blueprint to kind of, how do I get over Inoue? How do I get through that difficult patch? When Donaire was knocked, and he got up and he survived, and he did so very, very well. And if Fulton can utilize that, what Donaire did, and the skills that Donaire used, and then use the fact that he's bigger and stronger than Donaire as an opponent, that should work in his favor. So I think he'll be able to hurt Inoue more than anyone has hurt him before. Obviously, because he's going up in weight, and Fulton, is a strong puncher. So what I think will happen, and I think fair play to Fulton for going to Japan.
Oh yeah, the stones in him for that.
Like, I genuinely thought this fight was going to be in Las Vegas. I thought this was going to be Inoue's big Top Rank launch, and it's not. It's back in America. It's back in Japan. But obviously, that's where it makes the money for Top Rank, and it's wonderful, and it's great because we get to see it on a Tuesday afternoon and during our lunch break. But what I think will happen is, I think Inoue will come out fast, and Fulton's going to weather that storm early on, and I think it's how Inoue reacts to that. But I think Inoue has the skills to keep going. Now, he may not stop Fulton because, again, you're going up in weight, so it is a bit of an ask. But if he doesn't stop him, I think he'll definitely win on points. So I'd be thinking either it will be a late stoppage, because I think he's just trying to figure Fulton out, and Fulton will stop his early tirade, and then he'll have to regroup like he did against Donaire, except this time bigger guy. And I think, like the way he boxed through to the end against Donaire, I think he'll do that with Fulton. If in his brain I can't get him out, then I'll switch to outboxing him, and I can see that happening. So I'm going for Inoue, obviously, but I'm going to go for either a late stoppage or a points victory, and a deserved points victory. It won't be controversial. Maybe it will be, but I'm saying, in my head, I can see him win clearly, as we in the later rounds. And then, of course, it's in Japan. He has that as the home fighter advantage. But that's what I'm looking at. But I still think this is the fight of the year for me.
So so I've got a couple of things to add in there. One, Enda basically saying you only have to be as good as a fighter as Nonito Donaire just to live with Inoue. That's what a ridiculous standard to have to set to get through it. It's absolutely insane.
But
4-division world champion, Hall of Famer. But yeah, no, I totally agree. Like that's
Donaire at that stage, he'd already comprehensively beaten him once. But Donaire used his intelligence to survive.
And he hurt him. This was the thing. Yep.
One of my main arguments for this fight in Fulton's favor is, if we were to ask anyone in boxing, what style would you fight if you were to fight Inoue? You'd pick a Fulton. You would. Someone who's defensively very sound, who can fight well on the inside and who can box well on the outside.
So I think that Fulton is underrated on the inside and very slightly overrated on the outside.
Okay.
Very slightly. And I think we're underappreciated so I'll get into this because Enda and I are the head of the Inoue fan club. But Inoue has one of the best jabs in boxing. It is absolutely unbelievable how good this is. And his record in world title fights and the people he stopped is unbelievable. So for me, I don't see Fulton running around the rings a la Sonny Edwards. He's not like Sonny Edwards, because that's the style that I would go. That's the one. That's the most difficult one. Or a Shakur, someone who can do something like that. But I can't see him doing that. And I think what he will then try and do is go, right, I'm the bigger guy. I've got to then try and tuck up tight and punch with him. But the difference is when he did that against Figueroa, Figueroa's punches, one, the power comes off them as the fight goes through, and two, they're wide. Inoue punches tighter than Fulton, and that's saying something because Fulton is bloody brilliant. And you can't stand there and take, 12 rounds of power from Inoue.
No.
It's a case of, is Fulton's size going to be there? But we were talking about Donaire. Donaire had been up at 126. He was coming all the way back down to 118 to fight there. And he can hit. And the difference is, Donaire is one of the best punchers we've had in the last 15, 20 years. Like, that left hook is unbelievable. And his right hand just came on leaps and bounds. That's not Fulton. And that's the big one. It's the power.
Just an FYI on Donaire, his fight was postponed, and it's going on the Crawford Spence Crawford undercard.
Is it?
Yes.
Nice. I didn't know that.
Excellent news. But I think Fulton is just such a brilliant fighter, but he's a jack of all trades. And I think you need something to beat Inoue. I think you need something special, in my opinion. And I fancy Inoue to, in a very competitive fight early on, it'll be really, really good for 6 to 8 rounds. And then gradually, when Inoue goes up that final gear, I don't think Fulton is the gear that Inoue does. Whether his size takes him through there, I think Inoue gets him at the end. Perfect.
Very fair. I just think the way I'm looking at it is it's styles. I don't think he's a better fighter than Inoue, pound for pound or anything.
Styles make fights.
I just think it's styles.
Yeah. Styles.
So are you saying Inoue will stop him?
I'm saying Inoue stops him. But this is the other one. It depends how he does it, because I expect this to be hard. And I think we're now getting to I expect this to be the fight where we go, right, that was brilliant, but I think we're now at the ceiling. In the way that I think when you look at Tank, I look at Tank and I go, really good, 140 is the ceiling. I don't think it goes any higher than that. And that's what I'm expecting. Now, if Inoue runs through him, by the way, if Fulton stops Inoue, then Fulton goes into the top 5 pound for pound,
easy.
Maybe top 3, easy. That's one of the best wins ever. It's such an incredible win. But if Inoue runs through him, then it's going to take a hell of a performance from Saturday to stop me from keeping Inoue at number 1.
You've got to be, for Inoue, you've got to be so prepared to go through hell, first and foremost. And then you've got to be so sound-minded to pick your battles for 36 minutes. And it's not an easy task.
Because the one thing that the Butler fight showed is that Inoue is not necessarily a seek and destroy. He is a boxer. No. He's a counter-puncher. He's a brilliant technician. But he's not going to walk you down. But again, I don't think Fulton's going to totally disengage. He's not winning a fight like that.
Not in Japan.
Not in Japan. He's not winning. He's not beating Inoue like that, because Inoue will land enough. And obviously, when Inoue lands, it's just worth so much more. So I was just looking at it going, I was like, it's such a good fight. Fulton's going to have to go. I think he's really, really good. And he's going to have to be better than really, really, really good to win this fight.
Okay.
And it's just whether you think he is that or not. And you know me, I'm the eternal pessimist when it comes to this. Until you've shown me it, I tend not to believe it.
So boxing,
this is
right?
One other very fun thing. I think at the absolute tightest, you could say that 20% of the world's top 20 fighters are fighting next week.
Yes.
You could even make a case for 25% if they go up into the top 16. Because I think Fulton is certainly a top 15 pound for pound guy. Maybe not top 10, but definitely top 15. And then the other 3, they're all in the top 10.
Oh, yeah.
Which is just mad.
For some people, it's 1, 2, and 3. Or for some people, it's 1, 2, and 4.
I mean, if we get Spencer's too high up in too many people's pound for pound lists.
I agree. I don't know.
I was going to say that's because he's American, but Crawford's American. But the Americans love Spence.
They do.
Did you notice that? And that's another thing I wanted to comment on as well. The Americans are very pro Spence. And it seems to be the Europeans and the non-Americans that
don't forget how big Texas is.
Texas is massive.
He's got millions and millions of fans in Texas alone.
He's also so I've done quite a bit of watching for this. He's fucking brilliant to watch. He is a proper, the Americans love him because the Americans love blood and violence, and Spence is that all over. Anyway, let's move on.
quick point I was going to make was, wasn't very fond of the negative comments about Inoue popping up on Twitter sphere this week. But I'm not surprised because he's fighting an American, so it seems to be a little bit of mud throwing, and I didn't like it.
What are the comments?
It was just about, he must be on drugs, must be heads, because Inoue was giving out about multi-testing, because they're under VADA testing, and obviously everyone complains about drug testing. You're not, it's just but I just thought it was a real smear, and from a so-called boxing journalist, I was like, not so clever.
Which one?
Oh, just a nobody from America. Not really on my radar. It just popped up today. A YouTube boxing journalist, I called him, which is a bit rich coming from me, but I don't consider myself. I don't consider myself a journalist.
I totally missed that. I think my timeline is like really, really pro Inoue, so I don't think it makes it on there. But
I need to improve my timeline.
Yes, exactly. You need to really just best it. We're on to Spence Crawford. So this for me is the best fight we'll see this year. This is the top. Yeah, I think so. I have Crawford at 3 in the pound for pound. I have Spence somewhere in the bottom half of the top 5. So like 6 to 10. Sorry, at the top. So somewhere between 6 and 10. I haven't written one down in a while, but somewhere in and around there. But having watched this, like I've done a load of watching through this for Crawford and for Spence. They're both really, really bloody good. Before I waffle on, because I've got an absolute ton of crap written down here, what do you think's happening, guys?
Okay, I'll jump in first because Luke went first last time, and I probably will have the least to say about it. I think this is an absolute, like I just said, I preferred the Inoue Fulton fight. However, in terms of bang for your buck, this is the absolute, because it's 2 American, top of their game fighters fighting for, and that fight has been bookmarked for so long that when it happened, nobody was believing it. I remember we all said, yeah, sure enough, if everything's still there on July 25th, 29th, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's Inoue 25 and Spence Crawford 29. If the fight goes ahead, it'll be just brilliant. And I'm going to get my TNT, and I'm ready for an explosive night. Oh, sorry.
That's why I wanted to go in. There it is.
But and I'm delighted TNT picked it up as I predicted. Pay-per-view. I understand why people give out, but I can understand why TNT had to put it on pay-per-view, because they've paid a lot of money for this. They mightn't even recoup their money on this, but they paid a lot of money for this. And there's no way in hell you could put that fight on non-pay-per-view anywhere in the world, because you would lose so much money in America, because this is really going to be, I'd say, super encrypted, when it comes to stuff like that. So I can't imagine there'll be too much floating around of any kind of note. And it is one fight, and I'm not sure how I can buy it to watch it on like say Now TV or something. But I'm going to find out, because I think I have to buy it through Sky in Ireland. Now I'm gone off an awful tangent. Sorry, back to Spence. Back to the actual fight.
We love a broadcast discussion.
Well, it's good to let everyone know that's where it's available and all that. Anyway, back to the fight. What I see happening is, I'm going to take a step back. I think if you've seen my prediction with Joel, I'm obviously picking Crawford. And, I don't care. Actually, speaking of which, now it's gone out of my head. The video Joel did with what was the boxer? The New York guy. He fought Hearns, Tommy Hearns. Anyway.
Oh, Ray Boom Boom Mancini.
Ray Boom Boom Mancini. If you saw his interview with Joel, oh my God, he does not like Crawford and he loves Spence.
He does indeed.
He was such a fanboy of Spence. And it's strange, not strange, but it seems to me to be that American non-American divide of the Americans are Spence is their guy, and non-American you seem to go for Crawford. So I'm going for Crawford as well. And why I think it's going to be Crawford is Crawford. This has been building up for a long time, and I think Crawford is out to prove a point as well. Because he hasn't got the flowers. Jesus, I haven't used that phrase in a while. He hasn't got the flowers he's deserved from the American people, in my opinion, because they've always held Spence in a higher regard. So I think Crawford will be the hungrier fighter. And as well as that, Spence had that car accident. And like it or lump it, you're never the same coming back from an injury. Now, Adam, you might contradict me with your medical kind of experience on that, but as a person who's had surgery and major surgery, it really does affect your body, because your body's been opened and closed, and there's so much there that's not quite the same as it was before. Now, will that be a factor in the fight, and why do I think it is? Because I think the margins are so slight that something like that could play a factor in it, because we're talking about less than 0.1% here. And I think when you're going down to the fine margins, that's why the boxes that I tick come up as Crawford. It's not that I think Crawford's going to win overwhelmingly. I don't. I think it's going to be an incredibly close fight. But I think Crawford will win. And I think he'll win by stoppage in rounds 8, 9, 10, those rounds, not quite the last rounds, but I just think in the second part of the fight, just as we're getting into the middle of the second part of the fight, that's when I think Crawford will finally, he'll have broken down Spence at that point, and he will win by stoppage. Because I just think Crawford he's just out, I just think he's out to just prove everyone why he is the pound for pound king, and why he should be the king of that division, and why he should get more flowers from Americans than he does currently. So that's why I think Crawford will win.
Look,
it's no secret what I think about about Crawford. Look, I'm probably the head of the fan club for Bud Crawford. He's an absolutely amazing fighter. In my lifetime of watching boxing, he's probably one of the top three, probably. I just think he's absolutely fantastic. There's nothing he can't do at the moment. He's come up from lightweight up to light welterweight, undisputed. Come up again. He's going to be undisputed again next weekend. He's going to be a 3-division Ring Magazine world champion. Now, first Spence, he is an excellent fighter. This is the best versus the best. And they're putting it, undisputed, undefeated, unprecedented. And this is kind of unprecedented because since probably Leonard Hearns in the welterweight division.
De La Hoya, Trinidad.
Yeah, probably.
That's the last one that was this. Both.
That was like this. Yeah, fair. But I even think the two of these, to be honest, it is kind of like a Leonard Hearns situation. I think Bud is that good.
But sorry to interject, and I did get
yeah.
But just you're talking about comparisons there. The other one that you could compare it to, but luckily they didn't wait as long, was Mayweather Pacquiao.
Yeah.
Had it been delayed, it would have ended up in the Mayweather Pacquiao.
It would have been like that, yeah. If they would have fought in 2 years' time.
We were really, we were let down because it didn't happen when it should have happened. Now this is slightly later than I think it should happen, but it's still excellent.
And with Crawford, he's the reason I think Crawford wins this. Seriously now, not just because I'm a fan of his or whatever. I think his versatility, I think the fact that he can switch hit and be just as good from either way. His punching is so crisp and sharp, and he's the heaviest hitter that Spence has ever fought. No doubt about it. The way he punches in between, Spence is a workhorse. He likes to throw lots of punches. That's not a good thing to do against someone who punches in between your shots, because you won't see the fight ender coming. Spence's jab is fantastic. I think it's going to take Crawford a couple of rounds to warm into the fight. I think after 4 rounds, Spence will be up. But then I think Crawford's going to start warming into it. I'm going to name drop here. I spoke to Red the other week on Instagram, one of Bud's coaches. I said to him around 11 TKO, and he just he didn't disagree with me. He thinks they're going to go. He thinks they're going to stop him as well. And their crowd is very, very.
That's on the periphery of my prediction too.
Yeah, they're very confident of the stoppage. They're seeing whatever they're seeing in Crawford, and whatever they're seeing in Spence. They're very confident Crawford gets the win by knockout or TKO. I just think he's going to break Spence down. I think Spence. I don't think he's worse since his car accident. I'm not saying it hasn't affected him, but I've not seen it in his ring performances. I've not seen it like against Garcia or against Ugas. I've not seen him miss a step since before his car accident, would say. But that's not to say it won't play a role when Bud is putting it on him. But yeah, I just think versatility, power, ring IQ, everything goes towards Bud. And this is not a slight on Spence. Spence is still one of the best welterweights of this decade or back in the last 2 decades. But Bud is just that good. And I think he's going to stop Spence in round 11.
Nice. Right. I have a lot to add into this as well.
Super.
So, right.
As soon as you're finished that, I'm going to bounce. That's okay.
That's fine because we'll call it there as well. So, Terence Crawford, 3-weight world champion, 2-time Ring Magazine champion, 39-0, 30 knockouts. Crawford's record is 17-0-0 with 14 KOs in title fights. He is currently on a 10-fight KO streak with 7 KOs all coming at 147. Spence is 28-0 with 22 knockouts. But he is the better wins. He's beaten Ugas, he's beaten Danny Garcia, he's beaten Porter, he's beaten Mikey Garcia, and he's beaten Kell Brook. So Kell Brook's the best win. Spence's version of Kell Brook is the best win out of anybody at that weight class. At the minute, 7-0 in world title fights. Okay? Now, I was doing the same, and I was going, right, where does it all go? So I'm going to bring up Stephen makes the point. Spence is a terrific fighter, but Crawford is a generational talent who could have competed in any easier. I can't see how Spence wins this. Now, I would have picked Spence to win this fight until 2019, and this is where the timing of this makes a big difference. I think that Spence is he's bigger. He's a big boy, and by the time he gets in there,
I'm sorry, boys. I'm going to have to go because my lift is here.
That's fine.
Sorry.
You can watch it later.
Yes, I look forward to your monologue. I'm apologizing now.
Not a problem, buddy. Look after yourself. So, I had Spence up until 2019, up to around the Sean Porter fight. Spence's jab is absolutely terrific, but what he was brilliant at doing is he could really track you and make you work. So, I'll get a watch through. The Kell Brook fight is brilliant. He was absolutely fantastic in that fight, and the Porter fight is fabulous as well. And Spence is brilliant at tracking you around. Now, I don't agree with Luke. I agree with you. After the car crash, he hasn't got the final gear he used to have. So he goes 1, 2, 3, and then the second you slow down and stop moving, the uppercut comes through, the right hand comes round, he can double up to head and body brilliantly, and Spence is just like a buzzsaw. It's slightly blunted. It's not quite what it was. But he's exactly the kind of fighter I would love. Come forward, brilliant jab, and he works away. The body stuff is brilliant. It's not quite as good as it used to be. Now, Crawford, I think, is at the longer this has gone on. You've had Spence's at the car crash, but Spence's also had the eye surgery, which is another major thing that we've not mentioned as well. Yeah. Crawford's got better and better as a welterweight. Now, he is the older fighter, but I think he's got less wear and tear of his body. You cannot go through the car crash the way he did. Spence doesn't live the lifestyle the way that Crawford does. I think he's a slightly older fighter than of the two. Spence is bigger. Crawford hits harder. Crawford's more versatile. Spence is more consistent with his work, whereas Crawford tends to slowly pick it and break you down. Now, the one consistent thing I found is you can hit Crawford early, but Spence has this little pocket where the lead hand sits here, the backhand sits here. If you watch his fight, the straight down the middle catches him in every single fight. It caught him in the Brook fight. It's the shot that Ugas hurt him with. And it's the shot that Porter was most successful with as well. I think that's the shot that they'll go for.
That's just screaming danger when you're
fighting
Crawford.
And whereas Crawford, I think if Crawford is on it, not like he was against Kavalauskas, or I don't think he wasn't overly impressed against Avanesian, and I thought he wasn't at his best there either.
But like Avanesian, not saying he was playing with his food, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. But again, you look at it and you go, right, who's Brook beaten at 147? He's beaten Horn to win the title, Kavalauskas, Avanesian, good, solid top 10, 15 guys. Shot to pieces Kell Brook, a shot to pieces Amir Khan. And I'm trying to think of like who else it was. But anyway, where Spence has the much better resume. But he hasn't blown me away. He didn't blow me away against Ugas. He was better than I thought against Ugas. But I thought the Danny Garcia fight is one where you're going, he was really impressive in that fight for somebody coming off a car crash. Yes. He is somebody coming off a car crash. And I think Crawford stops him as well. And again, I've got 10 to 12 written down. And I think
round 10 just seems to be there.
Well, do you know what it is? If you think he's going to stop him, it very rarely is like that. And I think
I was just looking, Terence Crawford in round 10, the 25 to 1 is the odds on that.
Bad, I'm not a betting man. I'd lose far too much money.
Well, I only bet small amounts and I lose them all. But no, I just like getting it right. That's the whole feeling, because I was watching the tennis last week and I really, really, really should have backed Alcaraz, but his actual odds scared me off because I thought, oh, that's too wide. Maybe I'm too hopeful. But anyway, back to boxing.
I can see Spence. So again, we'll bring Stephen's comment up. I can see how Spence wins this, and the way he does it is, if Crawford can't, basically, if we were talking about how you don't want to punch, Spence doesn't want to continually punch with somebody that'll punch between him. If Crawford is unable to do that, just in the way that Spence's punch is very, very tight, and Crawford can be a little bit wider and a bit more loopy with some of his shots, as well as crisp down the middle. If Spence starts to physically impose himself and hit him with the jab and hit him with the jab and hit him to the body and slowly work him down and break him down, I can see how Spence wins this fight, but I can see more ways that Crawford wins this fight. And that's the reason I'm picking Crawford, is I can see how both win this fight. I think the more versatile guy, the guy who's got more tools in the chest, is Crawford. And that's how I reckon that ultimately it goes up there. The weight is not something to... I'm less worried about the weight, given the fact that I now think Spence is tight at the weight and Crawford's grown into the weight.
Absolutely. Have you seen the second preview show? I've only seen the first.
Access. I've seen all of them, yeah.
And the third one?
No, I don't know the third one's out yet, but I've seen the two.
Oh, sorry, when you said I've seen all of them.
Yeah, sorry. No, I've seen only the two that are out there.
All right. No, I have to watch the second one, and I'll probably watch it this evening because this is my midweekend. Yeah, no, I 100% agree with everything you're saying. You know, it's yeah, like, I mean, I don't disagree with either of you. So
it's hard, isn't it? We don't have somebody that's going for Spence, but there's a lot of people like so. There's quite a lot of people. Tebet, I think.
You need Ray Boom Boom Mancini on. By God, there's a Spence, backer and no mistake.
It's one of those weird ones. I can't see how you dislike either guy.
But I don't know if he dislikes him or not. But he's a big fan of Spence.
Yeah, but this is it. It's a case of like, so we were talking about Lopez.
But I suppose it's like saying to me or you, well, do you not like Fulton? You're like, it's not that. Yeah. It's just.
But if you watch it, I've thought a lot of the time, because again, in America, it's very much a case of like, it's the PBC and it's Top Rank. They're all very disparate entities. And very weirdly, there's like fanatics of like each side, but they don't like anybody that's not there. But I can't understand, if you enjoy watching boxing, I don't see how you don't love both these guys. Like, I love watching Spence and I love watching Crawford. And like, I will say on the rewatch, Spence is better than I remember.
Well, yeah, I would agree too, because
he's an even better fighter than I thought he was on the rewatch.
You know, like you said, and I think it was that comeback fight, that kind of did dim his light a bit, and it was to be expected. He was coming back from a really bad car crash. I remember seeing the car after and was going, how did he survive? I
don't know how he survived with, like, he didn't even break anything as far as I'm aware. It's absolutely insane. But, I mean, I love it. And to be honest, I cannot wait for this fight. And it'll just be brilliant. And I'll watch this fight 100 times.
I have to say, I'm so delighted that TNT picked it up. I'm gonna plug them again just because they deserve.
I've got one thing to say about the comparison to the Mayweather-Pacquiao thing.
Yes.
This fight took as long to make as Mayweather-Pacquiao did. The difference is Mayweather and Pacquiao, by the time it came to the zenith, when it should have happened, which was around 2009 to 2011, Mayweather had been fighting since 98 and Pacquiao had been fighting since God knows when, right? And they've been building and building and building and building, and then they got it and they were at their absolute peaks, which means by the time it did happen, they were that much further over the hill. This fight should have happened in 2008. That was when it was at its best. 2008 to around just before the
2008.
2018, sorry.
Sorry, because I was like, Jesus.
Yeah, I'm very keen. No, 2008. Crawford wins the world title at 147, knocks out Horn. Spence has beaten Brook. And then even if you want to go up to Porter, like I'm absolutely fine up until the Porter fight, right? At that point, that is when the fight is at its best. I thought if you were to describe it in a food term, Mayweather-Pacquiao was a steak that's well overdone. I would say we're now at a steak medium to well done on this fight.
Yeah, the way most people like it.
Well, yeah, that's probably
except the connoisseurs.
I think what it does is it makes it commercially better, but from a purely sporting standpoint, it's not at its absolute peak. But I'm not complaining. We're fucking getting it, and I didn't think it was going to happen, so I love it. I'm all in.
Yeah. Like I mean, if like 10 is the peak and 11 is slightly off peak, then I would say it's 11. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas 20 is like way too late. I mean, and Pacquiao Mayweather, I would have about 18. You know.
Yeah, and then Tyson Lewis was 20.
Tyson Lewis is on. How would you say that graphic? I just loved it.
That was before I even watched boxing.
Really, I know that. I thought, I don't know, whatever about that graphic. I just thought that's so bloody clever. You know?
But yeah, that was. Yeah. Is there anything else you would like to go over, my friend? Anything else you'd like to chat through? Otherwise, we'll call it an evening.
I don't think so. I don't think we're going to get any surprise guests this evening.
No.
But leave your prediction
in the comments.
The comments, and Spence fans, get in the prediction, get in the comments, and tell us how we're all wrong. And we know nothing. And I actually checked the odds, and in the UK,
yep,
Crawford is the favourite. I don't think he's the favourite in the US.
In Vegas, it's Spence.
Yeah. But I think that's on money backed more so than
yeah. Well, you get to kind of fight week and the money moves. It will be very interesting. See, the Ring always do like an expert's prediction.
Yeah,
I'll be really intrigued to see where that goes.
Because I actually, Boom Boom Mancini obviously is bigging up Spence, but it's kind of like who are the people that are. They're going to say it's nothing about who I like the most. It's nothing about whatever. This is who I think will win the fight, And I think we're all trying to be that. Like, I'm not saying it's not because I like Terence Crawford more that I'll think he'll win. There's lots of boxers I like and I don't necessarily say they'll win and I get flack over it. But I definitely think Terence Crawford will win.
I think it's a legitimate opinion in a lot of things, and it's very hard to take anyone at face value if you know that they have an allegiance rather than an agenda one way or another, which will be really interesting to see what kind of goes there. But my favorite part about all of it is I vaguely remember that in the build up to the Taylor Lopez fight, all the experts, I think it was 21 people the ring polled, I'm sure all of them picked Taylor. So it shows that none of us don't know shit. Like we're all guessing at this point, and this is why they fight the fight. But I really cannot wait for this fight. And it's just here's a question for you. So Crawford wins, Crawford goes to the number one. Spence wins, Spence probably goes to the number one unless Inoue runs through Fulton. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What does each of them have to do to get them in the conversation with like a top 10 welterweight ever? Spence has got a better case.
Well, I was going to say because if they win, if Terence Crawford wins this, I think that could be it.
Yeah,
I think he could sail off into the sunset.
Oh, they're definitely. One of them is fighting for a title at 154, especially with Jamel moving up to Canelo.
Yeah,
which is the one we'll talk about later.
But but like you said, if they move up to one, but no, that's not giving them the welterweight.
Yeah.
I'd say they'd be in the conversation if they beat their opponent this Saturday week. I mean, Sunday week in Ireland. You know what I mean? Like, what more can they do?
Can they
okay,
do
you could say that the people criticize Terence Crawford for his resume, but if he beats Spence, then he's beaten that guy that's beaten all those others. So does he take those victories then as well? You're kind of wondering, you know? And I think theoretically he should. However, if Spence wins, I think that really propels him up there because, like it or not, here on this side of the Atlantic, he ain't the favourite, and people are expecting Terence Crawford to win. So if I think Spence wins, that's going to really put him up, like, because he'll say, well, who, you know, I've faced everyone at this weight and I've beaten them.
Yep.
So,
and no controversy. Like, I think the closest one on here was Porter, and I thought he won that fight very competitively, but clearly.
He was off the boil, but that was expected, but he still won. Like, there was no question about it. But I definitely think, you know, the greatest welterweights of all time, you know, it's all subjective and rose-tinted glasses. But whoever wins the fight will have the absolute right to be talked about, you know, in that conversation, you know. So, and obviously whoever loses, their light is diminished by that, so they'd be less likely. Well, you couldn't really put the loser still in the conversation unless it was an extremely close fight.
This is it. If like Stephen says, if it's a real good close fight, well, they're going to do the rematch anyway. So what if they split it and go 1-1?
Then we'll need a trilogy.
Oh, this is the stuff that dreams are made of.
No, but when that third fight, you're looking minimum 5 years down the line.
Yeah, well, we'll ignore that. I'm going to ignore that.
Or maybe not 5 years. Maybe it would turn over really fast.
It would be next summer, would be the next one, because obviously the plan is to do the rematch in December already, because it's a two-way rematch clause.
Well, that would be next summer, so that would be, you know, 1 year. Jesus, that'd be.
And the other thing is the activity. So both of them have been fairly inactive anyway, but Spence particularly is coming off 16 months off. Something like that, 15 months off, and Crawford obviously fought Avanesian in December. So activity matters, but neither of them are hardly active.
No, not that you'd call either active. But whoever wins is definitely going to be talked about in the, you know,
rarefied fashions. They're both Hall of Famers already, anyway.
Oh yeah, I mean, when you consider what's in the Hall of Fame, of course they'll walk straight through that door. Not dismissing anyone in the Hall of Fame. I'm just saying that Crawford and Spence are.
They both reached the threshold, I think. It's particularly Crawford. I think particularly Crawford's reached it.
No, I think Spence deserves it on his resume too.
Yeah, agreed. Right, we'll call it a day. Thank you very much, my friend.
Yep.
Thank you for watching, everybody. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And we will see you in early August for, obviously, a review of all of this stuff. Have a good night.
Slán.